Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out on a Sunday morning. So I'm Sarah Mosses. I'm the CEO of Together Films, which is a consultancy working on impact production campaigns. This is Andrew Battley. And we were going to have Anson Hartford from Banyak Films also with us, but he's not here, but he wants to give a little introduction himself. So just give you context of what this film is.
Hello, my name is Anson Hartford. I'm the co-producer and director of the film Ping Pong, that was released in 2012, and I work as a producer and director here at Banyak Films. Okay, so the film Ping Pong is a feature-length documentary following 8 characters who are all in their 80s, 90s, and 100-year-old from across the planet as they travel to Inner Mongolia to compete in the World Table Tennis Championships. And so Ping Pong actually came from an in-flight magazine on quite a cheap commercial airline. It was actually Hugh, my brother, read it, and it was about the oldest player in our film. At that time, she was 98 or so. She was from Australia, called Dorothy DeLoe, and it told a story about how she was playing with the perception of her age to win the game against her opponent. So in the match, she arrived in a wheelchair just before the match, and so her opponent psychologically was thinking, "Oh my God, this is going to be easy," and then she sort of jumped up from the wheelchair and proceeded to sort of smash her off the table, and so it was the way in which she was playfully using her age, I think, was what Hugh was particularly attracted to, and is what we talked a lot about. And then we discovered that there was this world of veteran ping pong that we didn't know about. In fact, there's veteran athletics, so from everything shot put to running, you can do at a competitive level up to your 100, and so. But we focused on ping pong, and then we discovered there was a championship in China coming up, and so we cut a small trailer, which kick-started us on our way to making the film.
So this is a project that I ran when I worked at the BritDoc Foundation, who do a lot of work around film impact and what it means to make impact with a film. So what we're going to do today is very kind of laterally take you through every single step that we went from taking this kind of sweet, funny, kind of cute little film into creating direct impact in communities around the world. So I was the strategist and distribution manager at BritDoc. Andrew is literally just a mad table tennis fan who has worked in all kinds of table tennis and has done nothing with film before this project. But it was vital that I had someone who actually knew about table tennis to work with me on this scheme. So I'm going to kind of start really kind of from the beginning of kind of where we got to. So in November 2011 was the first time that I kind of really kind of got engaged in this project, when I was invited to go and watch a rough cut of the film that Banyak had put together. And it was a production of Anson and Hugh, who are brothers who run Banyak Films. Watching the film and kind of taking into account what the characters were able to tell us about being old, being healthy when you're old, not being healthy when you're old. Different characters had gone through cancer. The Australian woman had outgrown her children because she was now 100. As it gave you an eclectic mix of what it was to be old in a kind of aging society as we are. And in the UK at the time, there was quite a lot of kind of hostility towards kind of older people. They take up so much money, they cost us so much in benefits. There was actually quite a lot of kind of not nice things being said about old people. So watching the film, and kind of you see some of the references in there, you're suddenly thinking about kind of these characters in a different manner. So the German player, she swears quite frequently, which you don't normally see kind of sweet little old ladies doing on camera. The Australian lady comes up in a wheelchair, gets up to the table, and then completely smashes the people opposite her. So it was kind of translating the way that we see kind of old people in that way. Now, the key sentence in that trailer was when she says that it's keeping my mind going. So around the same time, after first speaking to the English Table Tennis Association, which is the national governing body for table tennis, the head there had suggested some research for me to read from Japan, which had shown from a trial study that the playing of table tennis can reduce some of the effects of Alzheimer's and dementia. some of them, from playing table tennis. And I was like, what? How can that be true? You read the report, and they'd done tests, and there was a centre in California that was also doing similar work, and it was showing how there's a certain element of kind of the agility of that hand-to-eye coordination, the speed of the ball playing, the movement to get to it, that it was actually reducing some of the effects, kind of the cognition that you needed to kind of train your brain back to a better position. And a character called Inga in the film actually goes through that process. She's kind of started to live in a care home. She feels like her kind of mental stability is going down. She finds a table tennis table in the basement of the care home and starts playing, and now runs the IT board at the care home. So she's kind of played her way back to health. So we had these kind of anecdotal evidence suggestions that this was working, but I really wanted to have some actual kind of a medical study, not just this one in Japan, to kind of prove that this was working. But also to then take this concept into other care home settings and seeing if it could improve the lives of the older people in those settings. So these were kind of two of the initial kind of primary objectives that we had at that point. But this was the Banyak film's first feature film. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to get from Anson was kind of what did he actually think was going to happen with this film kind of from the outset.
The expectation after, well, during filmmaking and then at the end with distribution, I think for us, I think any filmmaker would want their film to be the best film in the world and to go, you know, to Mars and back. But we were really, but because we built it quite small, we didn't really know where it was going to go. It was, in fact, we told our character Les, who'd done a lot of filming for the news channels, local news channels, and he wanted to know whether it would be longer than the news piece that he'd been in before. And so our only expectation was that it needed to be longer and better than the news piece.
So one of the important things kind of from the outset was kind of gauging the filmmakers' expectations. So what did they think that they would actually want to do with this film, and what did they think was achievable? And from Banyak's perspective, like, they knew that the table tennis community were important, but more in a sense of kind of sharing information, putting out some social media kind of hits. But at this time, when they were kind of finishing the production at the end of 2011, it was never kind of in their minds that actually there would be this formal campaign that kind of came through. So at the time at BritDoc, we wanted to start distributing films. So we decided that Ping Pong would be our first one that we would trial. And we wanted to show kind of other distributors that you could do things in maybe kind of potentially new ways, and working with partners in more efficient kind of manners. So we started building partnerships with people like the English Table Tennis Association, which is where Andrew was based in their office in Hastings, working on a project called Pongathon.
Ping.
No, Ping, even at the time. You're now at Pongathon. There's
Now
many
Pongathon.
P's in your history. So what was Ping as a project?
Well, Ping is essentially a street ping pong festival where we put table tennis tables on the streets of different cities, different landmarks, so railway stations, museums, shopping centres, literally for people to play on for free. They're put down there for like a month, 6 weeks, bats and balls free, people are taking. And actually here in Sheffield, it's in its third year of Ping. If you came out the train station, you may have seen a couple of table tennis tables sat right there. That is the legacy of Ping that started a few years ago. So Ping was funded by Sport England, which is one of the governing bodies that also gives money to sport around the country. And so in 2012, when we first started speaking, we were in our third year of Ping, literally hitting 8 cities across the country to put more tables out there, to get like hundreds of thousands of people playing across the country.
So the important thing about this is that was Sport England funded project, which means there's national coverage around it. There was an infrastructure of kind of awareness around table tennis. And ping pong was becoming this like cool thing. So there were clubs starting up where they would have ping pong tables kind of in the basement. You're having a drink with friends, you're going to play table tennis. There was a zeitgeist around kind of the coolness of ping pong at the time. But importantly, from the ETTA, English Table Tennis Association, they were doing a lot of these kind of outward efforts to try and engage more audiences in table tennis. So the Ping project directly speaks to people who might not necessarily go to a table tennis club, but if you see one in the square at Soho Square in London, you might pick up a bat during your lunch break. So it was kind of casual users drawing them in. But it was important because that was basically for them a new way of engaging audiences in their sport And we had a film that was about engaging an audience in table tennis that they maybe didn't think was kind of there. So when I first spoke to the ECCA and I said, what's your policy on older persons? They were like, we don't have a policy on older persons necessarily. Like, we don't have a remit for that. There's not kind of a specific project there. We focus a lot on youth because there's a lot of kind of funding around young persons. So they served older people. They had sessions for older persons at their local table tennis clubs. They were serving them, but there wasn't a direct remit for let's go and engage an extra kind of 10,000 older people there.
Yeah, because I think that also then comes, it's not just table tennis, that is actually pretty much across all sport, because things like Sport England, what they concentrate on is that kind of 14 to 25-year-olds, and especially around that school-leaving age, because that's when you have a massive drop-off in sport in this country, when people don't have to do it as part of school anymore, so they actually might just drop off doing sport. So their remit is really engaging those people, because what they want to try and create is world champions in sport at the Olympic level, because that's where their money is going to. So they don't really have that remit at all. It looks at older people, so it's down to more the social ping pong element of things like ping that is looking at that complete other crowd of those who want to play, because ping pong is retro cool and awesome.
It is retro cool. So the other important factor of 2012 was the Olympics were going to be hosted in London. So there was a lot of conversation around sport, a lot of conversation around participation, and there was just a big focus on kind of what were they doing in the Olympic year at that time. So when we took on the film, there was a number of kind of underlying factors that we were identifying around kind of how table tennis was being treated in the UK and the partners that we might want to work with. And the crucial thing is from day one, what we wanted to focus on was both the traditional distribution aspects that you would have and what we would call the non-traditional elements going forward. So on the traditional side, they had a very kind of set, kind of natural remit. They premiered at Hot Docs, which is a festival in Canada. They then came to Sheffield Duck Fest here, so they were doing festival runs. We knew we wanted to play it in cinemas because we felt it did deserve a cinematic audience, and we would go on VOD, DVD, kind of do all the regular elements. But the non-traditional then became really appealing in terms of what we could kind of trial in this setting. So when we were kind of putting together our concept for launch, the film screened at Duckfest in 2012. And this was the first time that I properly engaged Andrew on kind of helping out with the project. Because my ambition was everywhere that shows the film should have a ping pong table. Everywhere. The ping pong tables are quite heavy and quite big, which was annoying, and we're like too big to fit in a regular size van, which we found out, which was really annoying. But what I needed to find was who was a person in the UK who knew where all of the table tennis tables were. So I called Andrew and said, can you find me a lot of table tennis tables, and what are you doing in Sheffield at that time? So what was it when you got a mad call from me saying, can we make Sheffield ping pong crazy?
Basically I was actually in a service station when you called me on the way to City to have a meeting about ping 2012, because obviously we were in our planning stages ourselves early 2012, where we're going to go, who's going to get on board, how much money we're going to get from the government to do it, etc. So yeah, get a call from Sarah saying, this is what we're doing with the film. Now I'm, at this point in time, with Ping being an art kind of sport-based project, I'm up for all these ideas like, yeah, let's do that, I love that idea. So coming with an idea to put table tennis tables in cinemas so that people could watch the film and then come out and there's a table sat right in front of them and they'd be like motivated to play. I was like, that sounds awesome, we should totally do that. And luckily, in a lot of the places that you were actually looking to screen the film, we already had table tennis tables out there through the Ping project, because the tables just don't go to the table and then leave. They stay in the city, they're donated to organisations, so they're there all the time. So there are a lot of people who've got those tables that we can borrow them from and take them back to the cinemas. So we, here in Sheffield, I wheeled 3 table tennis tables up from...
I did not wheel.
from the train station to where the after party after the film was going to be held, just near here actually, just down the road, so that they could have the premiere of the film and then go and play some ping pong. And that's exactly what we did. And then we did it in things like Bristol, we did it in Southampton, and a random thing is the people at the cinema in Southampton are friends of mine anyway, so they knew. So I went down there myself and we played table tennis, so it was just fantastic. And you had lots of different types of people playing. So you had people going to the film who were interested in sport, you had older people who liked the idea of the film, you had people who were just interested in film, had no interest in sport whatsoever. But they all came out, different ages, different genders, different abilities, there was a table tennis table, and they started playing together on the table, which is great for us to see, because that's exactly what we wanted to do through Ping, getting all these people to play together.
So it was really vital at this point that our objectives completely matched. I wanted more people to see the film, and then when they were inspired by the film, to go and play table tennis. Andrew wanted to get any way possible to get more people to play table tennis. So it's really important that you have those matched objectives, because one of the kind of key elements about working with partners who are not used to film is trying to force your film idea into a partner who might not necessarily want to do anything around that. So you have to have those matched objectives. So back to Anson. Sorry, this is a very lo-fi way of having Anson, but he's on a shoot today, so he couldn't come.
So we took the film to a lot of festivals around the world, but there was definitely something special about coming back to Sheffield to play it there. The film had been in the meat market, so in a sense it's sort of homecoming, and a couple of the characters lived quite nearby, so that made it very special for us. But also the way in which we'd got on the back of the Olympics, because there have been ping pong tables put out around Sheffield, and so with use of posters and other sort of branding, we managed to sort of almost create the sense that we had put ping pong tables out around the city centre, which was amazing, and so all of that, I think, did play a really big part into making that Sheffield screening for us a really special one, making it feel like a sort of a homecoming. So before the Sheffield premiere, the UK premiere, we actually premiered it in a care home just outside Sheffield to probably 45, 70, 80, and 90-year-olds, and it was quite a surreal experience, and it was really interesting to film, not working, so the other jokes worked with a different audience. But anyway, so we actually premiered it in a care home just outside Sheffield, and I think the ethos of that was definitely something we felt was good and was coming from the right place, and it's continued to play in the care homes way beyond the cinema tour and the cinema release. I think it played in care homes for another 2.5 years, so it seems to be the best place for us to premiere it.
Okay, so the important factor there, as he said, the actual UK premiere of this film was in a care home. And this was a really important factor. So when we were looking at our core audience and who we wanted to engage, one of the things around older person settings, and we talk about audiences, where do you find those audiences? So people say, I want to engage young people. I'm going to do like a viral YouTube hit. Just because you put something on YouTube doesn't mean it's become a viral hit, number one, and doesn't mean necessarily lots of young people are going to see it. But with older persons, we had a way to identify where we could find groups of people in older person settings. Because in the UK, there are 20,000 care home settings. Some of these care homes only serve 2 people, some of them house 300, but there was identifiable places where we could find older persons who may be interested in A, watching the film, and B, starting some kind of health and well-being project. So when we did the Sheffield premiere, we knew we were going to be here at DocFest, so we found a care home just down the road, and we actually premiered it there with literally 25 kind of older people who loved the film, who reacted to it in completely different ways to when we were all watching the film. They found things hilarious that we just thought were normal, but they were loving it. And then again, they actually had a table tennis table in their centre, but only about 5 people were actually using that table, because there was a lot of older people who said, I can't do that. I'm not good at sport. I can't actually go and play. But the purpose was, after you'd watched the film and you'd seen the different characters, one who'd gone through cancer 4 times, one who'd lost all of her children, one was in a wheelchair, it removed that idea in their minds of, oh, I can't do that, it's too hard for me, because you've just witnessed 8 other people who look and sound and feel like you, totally rocking the table. So straight afterwards, some of these little old ladies who were very frail, who kind of hadn't played any sport in literally like 20 years, some of them, would go and just very gently start to play table tennis. And it's about translating kind of what were they feeling whilst watching that film and putting it into practical action. So we were literally witnessing people kind of changing their ideas about something and going to do it practically. Now, like one of them I think said to me, oh, the last time I played was 1948, my dear. I was like, what? But it was so true. Like, she just hadn't thought about doing it. But the film gave her some inspiration to go and do it. So it was a little trial setting, and we did a couple of these little trials in different care homes to see what the reaction would be. We never thought we would make every single person play table tennis, but it was more around every single person being inspired to try and take up some form of healthy activity, whether it be table tennis, whether they start swimming, because most of the characters do other sports as well, but it's through the route of table tennis. But the underlying proposition was, would you now feel more comfortable to go and do some kind of sport yourself? So we were trialling all of these care homes, and I was trying to come up with a way of making it really accessible to them, because transporting a table tennis table is expensive and you need a lot of space. So through our friends at the ETTA, the CEO put me onto this little thing here, this is like a shoebox, like literally a shoebox size, and this is a fold-up net. So it comes about this size, and you roll it out, and you can just clip it onto any table. And it comes with 2 bats and a range of balls. So I could send this kit, or take this kit with me to a care home, and on a dining table, turn it into a ping pong table in like 2 seconds. So then there was no barrier to access with regards to equipment. So no one could say, oh, well, no, it's too expensive, we can't get involved, like, it takes too much time. It's like literally you can turn your dining table into this setting. And again, the care homes, most of them had dining rooms. So again, it was like absolutely had all of the elements to come together. So I went to the manufacturer of this product, a brand called Decathlon, and was like, I'd like to kind of buy these for old people. And again, they said, oh, this is our family product. We make this for families with young kids. This is not for old people. What are they going to do with it? And I was like, well, they might want to play, and this is a really good thing to have. So they kind of pretty much laughed off the idea. They couldn't believe that I would want to kind of take this into kind of care homes. So the first round, I think we bought like 40 units to see how we could get on with it. Now, what was crucial was you can't just drop stuff into a setting and expect them to do things with it. So what we created was this playing guide, which you can see here. So a lot of filmmakers now have kind of associated materials with the synopsis of their film, the characters, kind of what you hope it will make people think. This literally had a how do you play table tennis kind of course in it, but also how do you play table tennis with older people and what's the health and safety around that. So the pack was really crucial to have all these elements. So we had the film, we filmed a DVD extra in a care home, literally teaching older people how to play, which was 10 minutes. The equipment they needed to use, and it could all be shipped for about £3 across the country. I went to AGK, who I thought could be quite a strategic partner. They're the largest ageing organisation in the UK. And at first, I thought maybe we could do 20 events with them. They've got kind of access across the whole country. After 2 weeks, they ordered 200 units. This was 200 screenings of the film and the equipment to go out. Now, what was important was the price of that pack was not just the cost of these elements in here. It also included a non-theatrical license for them to screen the film. So those 200 packs were 200 times a non-theatrical license payable to the filmmakers and the distributors kind of in there. And so it was earning revenue from these kind of being bought. So I took this concept to the Big Lottery Fund, which was a key funder in the UK, and said, we've got 200 going out with AGK. We would love to kind of get this nationwide and take this out to a lot more people. Would you help fund the project by funding a project manager, aka Andy, who knows everything about table tennis, the purchase of these kits, so that primarily for those organisations who aren't like AGK, who had access to money, could we trial this and take this into settings where they probably didn't have the resourcing, i.e. the cash, to actually purchase this idea? So we could put together a proposal. It took around 4 months from when we first pitched it to them to coming back with the result. We ended up getting £300,000 to run this campaign for a 12-month period. Now, that point is really significant. If we didn't have that funding, we would not have achieved the results that we had, because it was vital that not only did I hire Andrew and then stole him from his ping pong job that he had at the time, we had another project manager, we had the access to buy this resourcing, we could redo the website. That funding was crucial to the amount of success that we had at that point. But it's not unattainable for other projects, but it's probably just not to that scale. So 300,000 to date is the most high-cost one that we found as an example from the UK. Most people are working on a region of kind of 20 to 40 grand, kind of around there. So as we go through some of the results, have that figure in your mind kind of from that point. So from that point, we had the resourcing, we had the project manager, but what we needed to do was reach the partners who had access to the old kind of person's core demographic that we wanted to reach. So I laid out a strategy plan for the year, which involved doing engagement events in 9 different cities across the UK. From those engagement events, we would invite local care home managers, we would invite NHS delegates, to learn about the campaign and then literally take packs back with them to their own care homes to do the events there. And our target for the year was to have 2,000 events going through. Now, I'm going to hand it to Andy to then actually talk about what they actually had to do in that year to hit that target, because our plans had to mediate and change as we went through.
Oh God, yeah. Actually, quickly though, it's important to note of the £300,000 that the Big Lottery gave to the money, the campaign actually ran on about 40,000 of that to actually deliver the entire campaign, because everything else went on getting the equipment and making sure those packs were set out how they needed to be so we could distribute them across the country. So it's actually a very small percentage of still large, 40k is still a large amount, but in terms of 300,000, for us to actually deliver all this events and get the awareness out there. But as Terra says, yeah, literally, when we first started talking, which is about table tennis tables in places, later in the year, she started telling me all about the campaign. I love the idea of it, to the point she actually literally stole me, went to the CEO of Table Tennis, now called Table Tennis England, ETTA, and said, I'm stealing that guy to come and work for me. And he said, okay. And so that's how I got actually fully involved in the campaign. Now, at the time when I joined, yeah, Sarah had this amazing, brilliant plan set out how we were going to deliver awareness across the country in these 9 cities. The 9 cities picked because they had a higher demographic of older people. So we wanted to go there because there was actually more chance of obviously engaging the audience that we needed to speak to. Now, there were two key audiences that we needed to try and engage. The very end user, who's the older person, the person that we want to actually change, because our tagline of the campaign was being a health and well-being campaign that was aimed at engaging and encouraging and promoting active aging. So we wanted to be able to speak to the end user, the older person, to actually motivate them into thinking how they view themselves as they age, and being more active and seeing how they could be more active, because they could watch peers, people of their own age, travelling the world still, playing table tennis, and saying, I don't want to give up, I want to keep on playing. But to actually get to the older people, whilst we knew where they were in the care homes and the care settings, and whilst we say there's 20,000 care homes, those are those that actually would identify themselves as a care home. We expanded it to older person settings, so that would include everywhere from residence villages, sheltered accommodation, even down to church halls and community centres, anywhere where older people come together and group together, and they might be interested in getting involved in this activity. But again, to get to those people, you've got to get and speak to the people who are engaged with them, so the care home managers, the local authorities, people in the NHS, because if you can't motivate those people, why are they going to tell the older people in the care settings about the movie and get them involved as well? So that's where we came up with the idea, and that's why we had the awareness events. So the 9 main cities to start with, and for each single one we had to go with what we started to do, and this is based upon the success we'd seen doing this with Ping, was to create steering groups in each of those cities. So we could get key people in the local authorities, those in charge of adult services. We could get Age UK from that city. We could get a local NHS person. We could get them all around a table, and we could then just walk in there and literally show them the trailer that you just saw, get the same reaction. They were like, we're on board, how do we do this? Because they just love the characters in the film. We could then tell them, actually, this is what the campaign is about. But what was key for us as well is, because these people, they don't have tons of time to actually dedicate to all these things, so we needed to find a way that actually, all we really need you to do to start with is start talking about the campaign. Tell your networks. We've given you the resources, tell people about it. We're going to deliver an event here, and we want to invite as many people. So we don't want to take up your time, we just want to get them to come to a room and hear us talk about the campaign. They see some of the film, they get to pick up bats and balls, they get to interact with the ping pong care packs that we showed you, and then hopefully that will motivate them all to actually want to do something afterwards. And when they're at our events, they literally we had our packs right there. We handed them out as they left. I said, here you go, take this back to your setting. Now, that was a wonderful plan, and we had an initial idea of trying to get 75, maybe 100 people come to each of our awareness events. That idea very, very quickly changed after we first delivered our first one, and we had about 25 people actually turn up. And we were like, what are we doing wrong? And then we suddenly realised, well, the people we need to speak to get here haven't actually got the time to leave their care homes to come along to a 3-hour awareness event because they're running a care home and there may be literally 2 staff that are looking after these people. So, okay, let's rethink how we do this. So actually it became more important for us to get the right people in the room, not the numbers, just get the correct people. So if you can get like the area managers for care settings, and they can come along and they're like, well, we look after 20 care homes and 20 care settings in our area. We will take 20 of these packs and we will organise distributing them to our care settings and tell them what you've told us today about how we get people playing. And that's why it's also so important to have all the equipment in that box. So if we couldn't talk directly to the end user, in there was the film, was the 10-minute DVD extra, which was say was filmed in a care home by Hugh and Anson, with stars of the film and a coach from the ETTA to then make sure that people could play. So we had to learn from that as we went along as well. And what we actually ended up being able to do, because more and more people heard about it, more and more people told other people about it, is we were able to, in the end, distribute all those 2,000 packs we had into the care settings across the country. And actually what we saw as results were some 60,000 older people we estimated engaged in the Ping Pong Care campaign, seeing the film and then wanting to do something afterwards. And just a couple of quick stats here.
So the Andrew's referencing also, just to come from this, is an evaluation document that he did at the end of the campaign. So this is a wealth of information in terms of what was achieved from there. So we're just going to kind of just summarise in the set that there was 300,000 up front. It was a 12-month initial engagement. We hired 2 project managers solely working on this project, a number of engagement events, and all of the packs distributed resulted in some of these figures.
Yes, so 60,000 older people involved in the campaign. 60% of the people we reached were over the age of 65. 2/3 of the people were female, which is a really great high percentage, because normally it's the other way around. It's normally more males than females. We had a quarter of the settings that took our packs identified themselves as being a home that is giving specialist dementia care. 50% of those themselves said they'd seen an increase in physical activity amongst their residents. We had 25% of the people that came to our events came from the older person or the health sector, so they're right people that we needed to speak to about getting the film into the right places. And that almost 60% of older people settings noticed an increase in interest in physical activity after seeing the film and being involved in the campaign. So we're seeing really positive results on there. Now, real quick is to say, whilst the Ping Pong Care campaign was 1 year, immediately we were starting to look at what we can do beyond into year 2, year 3, how we can make the longevity of the campaign continue, and how we'd learned from the first year of how we're going to change that and give stuff to people to be able to do it themselves. How can we give information to local care homes or local authorities that want to pick up the campaign themselves, which is what we did. To the point now where, at the very beginning, Sarah mentioned about this medical research she wanted to do and get started back as what, 2011?
Yeah.
I'm able to say that this summer we will actually be funding through the BAT Foundation.
He has a t-shirt.
Have a t-shirt. We will be starting medical research that actually is going to look into, so up-to-date original, to look at what's happening in the brain through MRI scans as to, is there an impact, is there something positive happening in the brain when you're playing table tennis for those with early stage and onset dementia. We believe there is. King's College London, who are helping us with the study, believe there is. We now want to prove it. So my overall aim has always wanted to be to take that information and get the proof of results, step in front of Public Health England and say, here's the proof, what are you going to do about it? What changes are you going to make? Rather than spending 30 billion a year on dementia care, how are you going to actually implement something drug-free therapy? that's what we want to do.
Now, the key factor there is kind of our final point, which is very good. It's awesome. I like shrieked when Andrew told me he was getting money. It's the best day ever. But the important fact about this is because Andrew is a table tennis nerd, in a sense, like you're obsessed with it, like that's what you do all day, every day. It was good because when I moved away from BritDoc, I left, he literally has a bat of him at all times. He's living and breathing table tennis every single day. So when people were contacting saying, oh, I still want to get involved with this thing, I know the campaign's finished, but can we talk to you? He can still serve that demographic. He can still help those people because he's in that community. So when you're looking at the people that you bring onto your team to help deliver these projects, you need that issue expert. If this was a film about human rights, I'd probably hire someone who used to be a campaigner for Amnesty International because they know all of that detail that you as a filmmaker, even though you researched your film for 2 years before you made it, they will know more. They will just know more than you. And it's great because it means now, literally now 4 years later, the kind of idea that we started with in 2011 can now be realized as we go through. So when you're thinking about your exit strategy, how does this thing roll on after you as a filmmaker has kind of finished working on it proactively? Who is going to be that legacy partner that you can still work with to make these things happen? And that's literally Andrew for Ping Pong. So we're going to end this bit of the session now, and we're now going to flip it.
Do you want to do, I think maybe, are you going to stay on the stage now? Or
Yes.
would you like to?
He might have some good thoughts.
I will stay. I will stay on the stage.
Lovely, and now we're going to bring up Clint.
Yes.
Are you ready, Clint? Yep. Are you ready? Ooh, okay.
Come on, Clint.
And Clint's from the Harmony Institute. Clint Beharry, and he's about to tell you what the Harmony Institute is. Otherwise, we won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for that.
Okay.
We're going to jump straight into now. Are we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we have till 11?
No, 11:30.
Have 11.
Yeah.
Till 11.
Yeah, 12 minutes, go.
Time. You got
Say
time
more
to
than 3
explain.
words. Yeah. So I work for the Harmony Institute, and we're a nonprofit in New York City that studies and facilitates how stories change the world. I think everyone kind of believes that deep down, and we're a team of social scientists. I have a researcher in the audience, Lauren, and data scientists. And my job, I'm really a designer, is to kind of listen to a lot of theory that I kind of understand, and listen to a lot of data and statistics that I kind of understand, and then mash them up and try to provide material or apps or really just findings that practitioners, you guys, storytellers, can use instead of reading lots and lots of really boring academic material. So I think that's a decent summary.
Sounds good.
So I think what we're going to do is, hopefully if we have time, 2 projects, but certainly one. And what we're going to do is, with Sarah's expertise and mine, we're going to try to work through sort of an impact campaign strategy. So you saw Ping Pong has this insane, amazing things happening, and beyond hire Sarah, we're going to try to break it down and have some kind of crowdsourced insights on how to do this. And so, I don't know how the mic or audio works
I think they're going to shout and I'll repeat, otherwise it will take too long.
We're going to ask you to yell things, and just yell whatever you think based on the questions that we're priming you with. Okay.
To the whiteboard.
So I feel incredibly guilty for not getting to select every project that was submitted. Also, yeah, so, but no matter what, I think Sarah has a panel right after this, you're like on every panel today.
Yeah.
I'm happy to stay after and chat with you guys on each of your projects if you like, or you can always email me and follow up, and I'm happy to jump on Skype and talk to you about whatever you guys are working on. Yep, okay. So,
what's the name of our project?
The first project we're going to pick, this is pretty fascinating. How to kill an animal, okay? And the one-liner here is, a lifelong vegetarian doesn't want to be a vegetarian anymore, but can he kill his own meat? So I'm going to read the synopsis here. When is it okay to take the life of another living thing? Australian presenter Craig Barfoot, if I pronounced that right, has been a vegetarian for most of his life, but he doesn't want to be a vegetarian anymore and deeply questions if becoming a vegetarian was the right choice to begin with. To Kill an Animal follows the farm birth and life of a spring lamb, and during this time, Craig speaks to experts, biologists, nutritionists, and philosophers, and learns how to slaughter an animal for himself. At the end of the film, he will have to make a very important decision. Can he slaughter the lamb? Wow, Ruth is obviously opposed to this. We know your answer. Okay.
Okay, so let's go for themes first.
Yeah.
So, is this one on? Yes, okay. So, from that description, what we're going to start with is we're going to try and start identifying the themes in this project. So the first kind of plan of attack is basically what is the film actually speaking to? So we look at what we call the kind of macro themes, the big ideas, and drilling it down into the small. So anybody, shout out any word, what is that film actually about, like in single words? Anybody?
Sustainable farming.
Okay, so we've got sustainable farming.
Just yell, please.
Should I repeat the yelling?
Yeah.
Is that my job? Okay. Vegetarianism. Ethics.
Yeah.
Animal rights.
Yeah.
Relationship between animals and humans. Rights. Is that close enough? Wow, okay. Okay, I guess the influence on violence towards animals, on violence towards humans.
Bit too long, needs to be snappier. Snappier to like 2 or 3 words at most.
Kill animals, kill people.
Hunter.
Hunter instinct. Personal choice. Consumer awareness. Food and
Okay, so
halal meat consumption.
Food. Who said food? Right, how long did it take us to get to food? What was the first sentence that he said of that film? It's like, it's about food. Okay, so you have to start with the obvious of your project. Everything from this is about what does this person eat? And everything is stemming from that thing. So when you're looking at your film and you've written your synopsis and it's very detailed and it tells about your beautiful characters and their journey, when you're doing this kind of initial thinking about your project, you just start with the really obvious things. What is this film about? It's about food. It's about what we are eating in our own bodies and all the things around there. So you've got to start with like the central elements. So it's food and it's choice. He has a choice to be a vegetarian or he has a choice to eat meat and his choices around that. Now, choice is an important factor because choice quite often relates to economic ability. It might be cheaper to be a vegetarian. He might be able to afford to buy meat. He may have health problems, which means he needs to have more iron, which means he's being pushed towards eating meat. The choice kind of comes with a number of different factors. But primarily, this is about food and how you're consuming and how you're coming through. So a few more words. Anybody else? What else is this film about? Kill?
Did you say kill? Kill.
He's killing something. Meat, again.
Meat.
Central.
Responsibility. Healthy eating. Sorry, death? Is that? Yeah. Death.
Okay.
Barbecue.
Is that one outside? Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. So what we're starting to kind of identify, and we're doing this very, very quick fire. So this is not an entire campaign. We're just throwing you the steps to kind of start you thinking about what's working. Is you're starting to identify like what are your key themes. Because when we think of the ping pong example, it's about table tennis. Like at its heart, it's about table tennis. I needed to find the table tennis fanatic who could help me understand that world. So when you're thinking about your project, it's kind of what is that central theme, what is that central idea, who do you need to identify, both from a partnership level and also from a funding level. Because if you want to try and get support for these projects, you need to find funders who match these ideologies. So, his impact statement.
Add on to that too. What's really nice about what Sarah's listing here and what everyone's suggesting is that you see kind of abstract, more kind of core themes within this, and you also see very direct ones. And I think that's kind of a way to bring in people in sort of a direct, I care about table tennis, but you know, I think something that's really amazing about ping pong is sort of the beauty of age and wisdom. And I think, you know, a lot of people, maybe I certainly did respond to that aspect, whether or not I cared about ping pong or had older people that I was close with. So
yeah, there were characters in the film that you then related to. So if there are characters in that film that you can then identify with,
this will help.
What they're going through.
Yeah. And so that's kind of maybe a perfect segue to the question of, we've identified some themes. Some are very core and abstract. Some are very literal and kind of edge case. Who do you think the audiences are for How to Kill an Animal? Who would watch this? Just yell again. Anyone? Yep. Human rights interest groups. Yep. Vegetarians.
Yeah, we had butchers down here.
Butchers. Butchers and vegetarians. Yep. Farmers. Chefs. Hunters. Food campaigning groups. Doctors. Sherpas. Shepherds. Okay. Sherpas maybe too. Animal rights campaigners.
Yep.
Organic farmers. Food poverty campaigners. National Farmers Union. Philosophers. Nice. Okay. And there are philosophers in this, apparently. Yeah. Buddhists.
I can't spell Buddhist, that's terrible.
Foodies. Jamie Oliver.
He's under chefs.
Slow food movement. Yeah. Nutritionists. Psychopaths and dietitians. Not in any particular order. True. So these a lot of most of these I think are very directly related to the content. And I guess what I'm going to ask then is, in the same way, ping pong, yes, it's about table tennis at its core, but something I thought was really smart that you guys brought up is that a lot of that core audience of seniors, they might not get access to go watch the film, right? So if the goal of this project, and I don't want to put words in Craig's mouth, but if the goal is to maybe reflect more on what you're eating and the sanctity of animal life, beyond the people who are interested in food already, who are the people who would recommend this or facilitate something like that? Can we think about someone, pardon? Excellent. Teachers at school. Pardon? Mothers and fathers. Parents. Parents of all genders. Anyone else? Who controls the food we eat? Who can influence a large amount of people? Supermarkets. Celebrity chefs. Politicians. Food brands. Food chains. Fast food and food producers.
Good.
Wow. Okay, I think we've run out of paper, so
We can do more. But
we're going to stop there. Okay, so does anyone have a preference for? So okay, to kind of work through how you would build a campaign for these particular audiences that we've identified, we want to kind of break down these steps so that we don't have to weigh down all the different possibilities. Let's start with. Is there any particular audience that anyone wants to focus on from all the yelling? Sarah, do you want to pick one?
Does he have an impact statement on the piece? Should we read that first?
I don't think so.
Okay, no worries. I'm quite interested in, let's go with the foodies community, so like the chefs, the kind of the foodies, the bloggers, the kind of people who food is their trade. That's kind of what they're known for.
Great. So we're gonna have like people obsessed with food as kind of the title, foodies and chefs, etc. Okay. So a common issue here, certainly we've heard, is people will say, okay, what's the point of these documentaries? What impact are they having? You know, you made a documentary about this big climate change, for example. Have you changed politicians and policy and all of these kind of epic goals? And I think it feels very cynical in a way, but you know, rational. I think a nice way of breaking it down is not understanding that, you know, impact isn't this one particular thing. It's kind of a strategy you can work through, and it has a lot of different options based on your project and its goals and your audiences. So 3 steps that we use at work quite often is comprehension, attitude, and response, which is the researchers' fancy terms for learn, feel, and do. Right? So sometimes you make a documentary that doesn't have explicit actions for it, but if people are learning about an issue, if they're simply emotionally connecting with a type of character, those are things that can influence a person to make a different decision decades later in life. And a lot of that impact can't be tracked, but you know, deep down you know that that's your goal, and it's perfectly fine to anchor down on that. So in this case, people obsessed with food, can we come up or yell some sets of knowledge that they should learn from this project? What do we think foodies should learn after watching How to Kill an Animal? How to kill an animal. Or if they want to kill an animal. And this can, not only the film, you know, think about like what the campaign could do as well. How to cook vegetarian food.
Also, you don't have to kill an animal, you can just eat something else.
You don't have to kill an animal, you can eat something else. So food options. Yeah. Yeah. So awareness of animal killing. I certainly don't know where anything I eat comes from. Ethics in animal killing.
I think that's a big factor. Where does your food come from? Is a really big one.
Change in the meat industry.
Is that a learn one?
I think that might be a do, but fair enough. I mean, you can see a lot of these do overlap, obviously. Okay. So what's been produced in the food industry before? No. Mm-hmm.
So what has been produced before in that area? Because there will be a body of learning already in existence.
So linking to additional information and resources, it could be media, print, articles that already have it.
So the role of food in our lives. Yep, different cultures of food. I think we're going to use the running out of paper strategy to move on to the next one. Okay, what do we think after watching How to Kill an Animal and going through the campaign? How should they feel differently than they did before? They should be thinking or maybe questioning what they're eating. Yeah. They should feel guilty. Compulsion. Compassionate towards animals.
The guilty question is an interesting one because then it's about framing. Because the way in which you frame that narrative, you could frame the narrative so that people felt really guilty every time they ate food, but then you're questioning the do, because does the guilty feeling encourage them to do different things? So the way you frame that narrative could then reflect the way in which you want them to do different things at that point. But I'll put compassionate/guilty, depending on how the film's made.
Curiosity around to discover vegetarian food. Consciousness instead of guilt. I see. Contradiction, yeah. Could you expand on that a bit?
What I mean is that people who are eating meat and not realizing how it comes from, or vegetarians who are creating a situation where all of these farms with soybeans happen. So I mean, it's the contradiction of your food choices because of the lack of knowledge.
Okay.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah. Conflict of interest. Yeah. That's actually a really interesting point. You know, something else that happens a lot in this industry, I think, is documentaries kind of preach to the choir. You know, they are very much about a topic, and only people who already think that are going to do that. What we found in studies is that actually when you create sort of ambiguity or dilemma or confusion in people, that's actually when they're kind of rewiring their opinions. So sometimes you don't get to make the film that tells your exact viewpoint. You try to find a bit more of a central area to pull people in from different opinions or different backgrounds. Okay, we're going to hop on to do. This should be, I think, the easy one. What do we want people to do after experiencing this story? Eat less meat.
Think about wasting food.
Think about wasting food.
Eat healthy animals. Have the animals killed, slaughter. The reality of slaughter.
Is that a do? No? So a do, so like physically do. So
No, sorry.
so we've got you. So it's about that progression. So if you've learnt something, so you've physically got information. Like a documentary, at some point should have some kind of information that you've absorbed. You felt that, and you've taken that to heart because of an engaging character. What are you then going to do because of that?
Create a petition or sign a petition for animal welfare.
Awesome. Share the film and also sign a petition for animal welfare. And I would think, think back to Ping Pong a bit too. They got this idea of active aging, getting more people to play table tennis, even public health studies for the English government. Can we imagine any epic goals like that? Lobbying the food industry and politicians. NHS. Having better farming methods. Respect and connect better with animals. Change food shopping habits. More vegetarians. Ethical shopping and more or less vegetarians.
Yeah, with the changing the shopping habits.
Hunting revival. I think Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, killed his animals for a year before he ate them. Yeah, he just took a yearly challenge, and that was one he had to do. I'm assuming he eats less meat now.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good
I think
on
that's
that
a good
one?
amount, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's already interesting here how you can see that I certainly didn't imagine any of this stuff just skimming a synopsis, but, you know, based on this really quick session of crowdsourcing everyone's opinion, you can kind of see really strong bullet points for learn, feel, and do. And the film and campaign doesn't need to do all of this, but right away you're already getting ideas. And this is only just one audience group. If we have time, do we want to hop over to the...
I think we do with the other one, just we've
Separate
got
project?
just we've got a contrast to it.
Okay, great.
Because I'm hoping it's on a contrasting issue that you've chosen.
Yes, okay.
But I think the key thing is that this works for different. So if everyone can kind of see this somewhere up here, so you kind of have to go through this process with each audience group that you're looking at. So it's kind of what are the themes? You've identified all your themes on the first page. You've looked at kind of what are the big areas, what are the issues that you're trying to talk about. But then it's like, which audiences do you need to create impact in that area? So you need the foodies to like eat less meat and make that cool again. So it's like if every single chef in England was saying, I don't eat meat on weekdays, you'll kind of encourage them to do that because that audience group is going to help you reach that kind of impact point. And then kind of the step further is working out, okay, well, how do I reach those foodies? Like, actually, does this need to be a national broadcast? Because actually, these chefs are already on kind of BBC, they have their regular audience that's there, so actually that's where you want to drop this in? Or actually, is this more of a grassroots thing? Do you want to be doing events with local farm groups, organic markets on a Sunday morning? Kind of how are you reaching this particular audience? So you're going through this stage with every strand of the audience that you're looking at. And you may start with like 10 different groups, and then you're prioritizing actually which are the key elements that we want to achieve. So how do we kind of break that down? So let's switch to a different project and see what that's about.
Yes, right as I enter this Wi-Fi password that kicks me out.
So,
Are they there?
there you go.
So did you learn something?
That was fascinating, yes.
Okay.
So with the slide, what we'll do actually on our website, togetherfilms.org, I'll put up this slide as a PDF, which Elizabeth will remind me to do tomorrow. So you can see this one. Okay, so next project. Are you on?
Okay. So the second project, I think this one's even trickier. This one's called Talking Machines, and I'm going to read the synopsis. So, we all live our lives rushing around against the backdrop of one soundtrack or another. Can you imagine a world without recorded sound? It's hard to do, but before Edison's invention of the phonograph, the only way to listen to music was live, or via a live radio broadcast. This film explores the extraordinary invention of the phonograph, the world's first ever recording machine. It does so by following a small but passionate group of phonograph devotees worldwide, people who cross time zones to make recordings onto wax cylinders without the aid of electricity. We unravel the progression of audio technology of over 140 years, from the phonograph through to Spotify and MP3 music files. In this context, and with few record shops left in the UK today, we question what has been lost along with the hard copy, be it vinyl, CD, or cylinder. We also take a sober look at the significance of the passing of the social element of music sharing over the past generation.
I like that.
Tingly, yeah.
Okay, so themes. What is this film about?
Music.
Good.
Good. We learned the lesson from the last one.
Okay, what
What's
else
that?
is there?
Sorry.
Who was that? Oh,
Hearing.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if I'm having trouble hearing all of a sudden. What?
Quality of sound.
Quality of sound. Sharing music. Communication and recorded music. Change in society.
I think someone said distribution of music.
Distribution of music.
Technology.
Technology.
Live music, slow down.
Live music, slow down. Sarah's.
A sense of community.
A sense of community. Archive. collecting and living in the past? DIY? Independent music production? Popular culture? Obsolescence? Artists' rights? Record shops? Vinyl? CDs? Someone just yelled. Piracy? Technology? MP3s. Sarah, how's your hand up there?
Good, yeah. I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what was quite interesting about that one was a lot of it, so we had our big music. And it's all the different strands that come out of that. So you could break down the music industry into like a load of different layers. So you've got the distribution of music, you've got sharing music, recording music, music production, you've got the artists. So from the one big theme right at the top, this film is all about music. What does music mean to us? How do we hear music? You can start with that very, very senior kind of theme and break it down into all the strands. So because music is an industry in its sense, you can break it down very clearly. You have distribution, you have music labels, you have record stores, physical shops, you have live gigs. So you can start with that really big theme and then extrapolate all of the different bits that spring off it. And then you've got the physicals, you've got your MP3s, your record stores. Physical is really interesting because you can attach things to a physical asset. So when you're sending out a vinyl release or something, could you have like a barcode on it about the film where you could scan in your phone, you could see it. Anything physical that you could potentially attach to becomes really interesting. That's enough themes for now, I think.
Yeah. And I really love that, you know, the two projects, when I read them, I was like, these are fascinating. I mean, all the projects are very interesting and they feel very specific, but, you know, Sarah's very experienced and can immediately say food, music. You know, she identifies themes that are universal. And a lot of times, you know, we all go to these events, these conferences, and you meet people, and they're like, what is your film about? It's about this guy who, you know, it's this long explanation of this really esoteric thing, but sometimes you can just say food, and it's like, whoa, okay, you caught my attention. I'm really hungry right now. I'm going to pay attention here. So, you know, you are... I really want to play ping pong, actually. So, you know, you can get pretty dynamic about this, and depending on who you're talking to, you know, pick a different hook that pulls them into this really center of your project. I'm a nerd, so you could start with technology, for example. Okay, so who do we think would be audiences for this project? Musicians. Record collectors. Sound nerds.
Love that.
Is that what you said? Radio listeners. Clubbers. Music institutions. Campaigners for copyrights. Record labels. So just like how Ping Pong had to think about, you know, the people who worked in these care homes, and we talked about supermarkets being kind of central agents to the food, who can we think about that is a bit central to this as well? Maybe not direct. iTunes. I'd say like music distributors. Who could control this at a larger macro level, changing how music is distributed? I don't know. I mean, I'm asking. The music industry? Jay-Z. Yeah, Tidal isn't doing so well. He should switch back to vinyl, I think.
Well, the artists themselves.
The artists themselves. Agents of recording artists.
Did anyone mention? Well, it's kind of like we've got the industry side, and we've said radio listeners, but really like consumers of music. So it's like the big one of like who actually consumes the music at that point.
So venues, is that? Music fans. I would argue even the music technology industry, like who builds these things and puts them out there. I think if Apple had an iRecord or something, everyone would buy it, even if it's useful or not.
I think your core audience is that the generation of people who have gone from cassette tape now to MP3, like maybe the 20-year-olds, they
Yeah.
wouldn't get this, but the 40-year-olds who remember and have seen all the things from mini disc and the rest of it, I think they would dig it.
So there's a very important point about age as well. So the age appropriateness of different things that you're targeting. So we've got like the record fans and cassette fans of 40 plus, and then you've got your younger fans who've only ever listened to music on Spotify and have no idea what a vinyl is.
Actually, yesterday we had an interesting, I don't know if Austin's in here, but he got a free vinyl record at some event, I think the Scottish Drinks thing yesterday. And I asked him, I was like, wow, you have a vinyl player? And he's like, yeah, actually, his dad is an audiophile, and he was always in his dad's room playing records. So even though he's, probably my age, he still prefers vinyl. And I think there is this beautiful family connection. And he listens to vinyl kind of because of his dad, And I think there's an opportunity here for that family aspect of this story as well.
Also to note, they've just reinstated the vinyl chart here in the UK because so many people are buying vinyl again.
Yeah.
They dismantled it years ago and they brought it back because it's now part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
So it's coming back.
So I would add chart people, whoever they are. Neil Young fans and Neil Young himself.
That's where we start.
Neil Young impersonators, probably. Okay, awesome. So we've come up with great themes. You can see abstract, very edge cases, kind of hooks to pull people into these bigger ideas, and tons of different audiences. So can you guys pick an audience that you'd like to focus on here? Fans. Okay, awesome. And just like last time, we're going to break it down into learn, feel, and do for music fans. Great. Okay, so what would we like people to learn and understand because of this project? The history of music recording. The tangibility of music format.
How the consumer habits have been manipulated for maximum monetization of the
Music industry capitalism. The science of sound. Wow, nice. Yeah. What happened to piracy? The process of distribution. The impact on musicians because of these changes.
How music has become ephemeral.
Okay, I'm going to go. Music.
How music has become ephemeral.
How music has become ephemeral. And at the back?
Changing consumption patterns and alternative consumption patterns.
So, changing consumption patterns. How to make a wax phonograph.
I'd love a how-to do that. You can have a how-to sheet. This is how you make
That's already one idea for this campaign that Sarah is going to do for free for you.
It'd just be quite fun.
Okay, we're filling up learn.
Okay.
How about feel? How should people feel in response to this project? Nostalgic. Does anyone see that Mad Men, Don Draper scene with nostalgia? Oh, so good, so good. Yeah. Anything else?
Maybe it's in between the learn and the feel, but it's the loss of the aura, which is Benjamin's conception of music as opposed to alive and reproduced. So he talks about aura and it's live, which is kind of final, which is something that we're losing with
Yeah.
digitization of it. So
So the loss of the live aura. Inspired. Yeah, yep. Wistful. Wow, okay. I'm going to look that up a bit later.
We agreed to actually buy music rather than just listen to it on Spotify.
So the urge to buy music instead of listening for free on Spotify.
Connecting with musicians better?
Connecting with musicians better.
More live events?
They feel like attending more live events. Definitely. What about this idea of, I really love this last sentence. We also take a sober look at the significance of the passing of the social element of music sharing over the past generation. I think something about sharing, like the need to share music more instead of just clicking lists on the internet all the time. Mixtapes, nice. What's that?
The collective experience.
Yeah, the collected experience.
I'd hope you'd feel
Collective.
And the future of music ownership.
The future of music owner.
Is that a feel?
You feel
You learn
futuristic about. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, that'll be in learn. We'll keep that one on.
I hope you'd feel passion.
Passion, yeah. Passionate about music. I think music's like the most universally loved thing, like ever. I can't think of anything else. Maybe story? But, okay. Okay, so let's hop to do. What do we want people to do after this project? Save record shops. What was that, sorry? Go. Same thing, yep.
Create collective listening space.
Collective listening spaces. Experience albums as an entity rather than tracks. Change music consumption.
Go to a gig.
Go to a gig. Set up a music club. What about this idea of the age difference or family? Sharing passions with a younger
So
generation.
we did a lot around intergenerational work for ping pong. So we got kids from schools to go into the care homes to play ping pong with the old people.
That's awesome.
Because we found out like loads of people, because of the way people have been moving and families move, you don't live very close to your grandparents very often. So you don't actually interact with that generation at all. So we did a lot of intergenerational work. But this is quite a nice thing you could do. There's a lot of actually trials around, there's a few short films about it, listening to music from their youth and it triggering parts of the brain that certain people in their old age haven't had before, and actually overwhelming emotions that come through. There's an amazing short, which I can't remember the name of now, literally watching a man put some headphones on listening to jazz from the 20s and crying.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really given any emotion away to anyone for ages, and just listening to it triggered so much inside of him. So it's an amazing...
It definitely is, and they have shown that even with dementia and on Alzheimer's, some of the last thoughts and memories that people lose are music or tracks or songs. People sometimes don't even know their names, but they can remember a song that they loved as a child.
Because there's different things of facts and feelings that are going on.
Yeah. You should have music at ping pong, and then you kind of get everything going to that.
We do our places, our clubs.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, I'm just messing this up right now. Is there anything else we would want people to do?
Love that.
Wait, what was that one? Sorry?
Learn how to play.
Learn how to play an instrument. I start a band. Sarah is also a freelance music teacher, by the way, if anybody wants to do that. Actually true. Like every instrument somehow. Enjoy. Enjoy music more? Yeah. Okay.
Take part in a community music event, yeah. That's good.
I like that how it's gone from listening to then actually making.
Yeah.
Also, as well as listening to an album as an entity, producing an album as an
Right. So listen to a full album instead of individual songs. Sorry.
Produce it.
Produce it like that. Sorry. Got it.
Do you have something about access, like accessing vinyl that you might not, it might be advertising, or making that?
Like becoming a vinyl hunter person, or
Yeah, like reissuing, like getting recipes to reissue. Yeah, that kind of thing.
reissuing music on vinyl. Great. Yeah. So like vinyl venues. Yep.
Paying for music and appreciating the artist's input. So appreciate, absolutely a younger generation understanding it's not all free, and that art actually should
Yeah.
be.
So appreciating the cost of art. Yeah, that's great.
So we've got 4 minutes left. To
Okay,
appreciate.
4 minutes. Yep. So thank you everyone for doing this 2 exercises. Is there the person who submitted this in the audience? Oh, okay. Was this helpful? I think.
It's more confusing and
Yeah.
Interesting how we all kind of see this, because I've been doing this 5 years so far. It took me all over the world, and it started with little wax cylinders, eccentric, and this in the basement. But if we're going to make a film about all those things, I think it will not be enough to make it 100 hours or longer. So is it about music recording? Is it about music sharing? Or is it about technology? Or is it about endorphins being released as an influence of music? There's so many aspects, and Clint makes also similar film. He's got different budgets, and I found that maybe it is quite a very deep concept and very difficult to tackle to focus just on one screen.
So the key thing there is that all of this doesn't need to be in the film. So the heart of everything that we kind of work on, we always say, like, it needs to be a good film to start off with. So you need to stay central to the film that you have created. You need to have your characters, you need to have your narrative. This is about the associated end goal of kind of watching it. So all of these things could be triggered from tiny little references in the film that your characters mention. So you might not have a whole conversation about the death of the record industry, but by the very nature of him going, it's really sad, like no one's buying records anymore, you can spring off this huge thing on, no one's buying records anymore, like everyone go and buy a record. So the elements that you have kind of within the campaign setting can be kind of so far kind of removed from kind of what the film is, but it's kind of when you watch that film, what have you felt, and then how do you trigger out those actions from it? So that's why it's really interesting to look at it from this perspective. So you may cross off, like, actually you don't learn hardly any of these things in your film, so you just cross them all off and go, okay, what are we actually learning? So then what is that triggering here, and what's it triggering down? So you may only end up with kind of 3 things from each one that actually reflects your film, but it's looking at kind of like, what's that sidestep that you can kind of come across it from.
I think the other thing is that you need an impact producer. And this is something, as a filmmaker, you are not really setting out to do. What this is all about is actually bringing other people and the right people in to do the job of making your film with more impact. And the reason why you talk about it right in the beginning is so you know which directions you're going, and these campaigns can start early. So I think that's sort of, where we should leave it. And I think this was absolutely fantastic. And the good old flip chart.
Classic.
Pencil.
Yeah. Back to basics. Yeah.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause.